The night was thick with silence as Alex pulled the hood of his jacket over his head, his heart racing against the eerie quiet of the abandoned alley. His breath quickened, and the air felt too cold against his skin, too still. He had felt the eyes on him for the past hour, hidden in the shadows, tracking his every move. But no matter how hard he tried to turn, to look, there was no one. Nothing. Just the darkness stretching endlessly behind him. He checked his watch again. 12:37 a.m. The city streets, once alive with noise, now appeared desolate. A few cars passed by, their headlights casting fleeting shadows across the cracked pavement. But Alex knew. He knew he wasn't alone. Someone, something, was watching. The feeling had crept up on him slowly over the past few weeks. It started small. A missed call, an unknown number. A strange figure in his peripheral vision during his late-night walks. At first it was easy to dismiss, but tonight the feeling was suffocating, like something or someone was drawing closer. And with every step he took, that feeling grew sharper, more tangible. Alex had always been a skeptic, grounded in logic, in reason. He didn't believe in ghosts or conspiracies, but there was no denying it now. Whoever, or whatever, was stalking him, they were patient, methodical. They never rushed, never made themselves known directly. But Alex was sure of one thing. The person after him wasn't just some random stranger. No, this stalker had a purpose, and it involved him. He quickened his pace, the soles of his boots hitting the pavement harder now, almost as if he were trying to outrun the fear that had been gnawing at him for weeks. He reached the street corner, glancing over his shoulder once more. But this time, there was no turning back. Suddenly, a soft click echoed from the alley behind him, the unmistakable sound of footsteps on gravel. His pulse shot up, his instincts screaming at him to move. But he couldn't. He couldn't run, not without knowing, not without finding out who was behind this, who was behind them. The tension in his chest made it hard to breathe as he whipped around to face the alley. It was empty, of course, but the noise, it had come from right there, right where that pile of trash lay against the brick wall. He could feel the weight of someone's gaze now, heavy and cold, pressing into the back of his neck. But there was no one. Nothing. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket, making him jump. Alex fumbled to pull it out, his fingers shaking. The screen lit up with an unknown number. "Stop looking. You're already dead." The message sent a shiver up his spine. But it wasn't the words that paralyzed him. It was the fact that he had never given anyone his number. No one but his closest friends and family knew it, and they would never threaten him like this. So how did they get it? Who was they? A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Alex's thoughts raced. There was no way he could make sense of it. But one thing was for sure, he wasn't imagining this. Someone was hunting him, someone with knowledge of his every move. The clicking of footsteps grew louder, closer. Alex glanced around desperately. He had to think, had to move. But where? His eyes darted to a fire escape ladder. It was a long shot, but it was his only option. He bolted toward it, pulling himself up quickly, desperate to put some distance between himself and whatever was down there. His breath burned in his lungs as he reached the top and crouched low, peering over the edge. He was right to run. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, cloaked in black. Their face was obscured by a mask, just a smooth, featureless surface. But Alex could feel it, the weight of their presence, like they could see him even without eyes. The figure moved like a predator, their every step calculated, deliberate. Alex's heart pounded in his chest as he ducked behind the metal structure, his mind racing for a plan. He couldn't let them get any closer. But how could he escape when he didn't even know who was hunting him? "Who are you?" Alex wanted to scream, but the words caught in his throat. The figure below him paused, their head tilting slightly as if listening. Alex held his breath. His heart was a drumbeat in his ears, loud and frantic. They had to know he was up here. They had to have seen him move. The only question was, would they act? For a moment, everything was still, too still. Then, without warning, the figure spun on their heel and bolted down the alley. Alex's breath caught. What was that? They hadn't been searching for him. Had they been waiting for him to make the next move? Alex hesitated. Was this a game? A trap? It was then that he realized something far more terrifying. This person, this stalker, knew him. Not just in the superficial way that a stranger might know him, but in a way that cut deeper. They knew his weaknesses, his fears, and they were using them against him. It was personal. Suddenly, a sharp pain sliced through his head, blurring his vision for a second. He staggered, trying to steady himself, but the dizziness made it impossible to focus. That's when the voice came. A low, calm whisper right behind his ear. "Alex, I know everything about you, every secret, every mistake." He spun around, but there was no one there. But he felt it, that unmistakable presence hovering just behind him. He stumbled back, his eyes wide with panic. No, but this wasn't just some random stalker. This person knew things, too many things. They were playing him like a puppet, pulling on strings he didn't even know existed. Alex's mind raced. How far did this go? How deep did the game run? His entire life, his career, his relationships. What if everything had been manipulated by this person all along? What if they were in control from the start? He gripped the railing of the fire escape, trying to steady himself, trying to think. He wasn't helpless. He was smarter than this. He could figure it out. He had to. He whipped out his phone again, his fingers trembling as he scrolled through the recent messages. That last one, the one that had rattled him. "Stop looking. You're already dead." Was it a threat? Or was it a warning? Was it saying he was already too deep, that there was no way out? Before he could answer his own question, the phone buzzed again. He looked down, his stomach dropping. This time, it was a video. He clicked it, and his face drained of color as the screen loaded. It was a recording of him in his apartment, from a camera hidden somewhere, right there in his living room. He saw himself, standing by the window just hours earlier. He had been alone. He hadn't seen a thing. And yet, someone had been there, watching. The video played out. It was a slow, methodical recording, but something stood out. He hadn't seen the figure before, but now, with the video playing, he could see the mask, the same mask from the alley. He watched in horrified silence as the figure stepped into view, just behind him. The mask gleamed in the dim light, almost mocking him. And then the figure's voice echoed through the recording. "We're just getting started, Alex." The message was clear. They had control. They had always had control. But Alex wasn't done yet. He would figure this out. He would find the one behind the mask, and he would make them pay. But time was running out. The clock was ticking. And this was just the beginning.